Welcome to Trailblazers. I'm your host, Melody Bradford. Today's guest is a leader who doesn't just manage change, he shapes it. He's someone whose name is nearly synonymous with the modern story of Easton, Pennsylvania. Mayor Panto is one of the longest-serving mayors in the Commonwealth, with decades of public service and multiple terms as Easton's mayor. Under his leadership, Easton has experienced a remarkable transformation from downtown revitalization and economic development to cultural vibrancy, regional partnerships, and a renewed sense of civic pride. Sal's journey into public service began long before the mayor's office, rooted in community, advocacy, and a deep belief in local government as a force for progress. Today, he oversees a multifaceted municipal operation while navigating growth, bureaucracy, and the very real pressures of leading a city in constant evolution. In this conversation, we'll explore the man behind the office, the lessons learned over decades of leadership, the story of Easton's renaissance, and what's still ahead. Mayor Panto, thank you for joining us on Trailblazers.
Thank you, Melody. It's great to be here.
So I want to go back to the beginning. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, the values you were raised with, and how those shaped your interest in public service.
I grew up on the south side of Easton, the other side of the tracks, as most people refer to. It was a rather poor working class neighborhood. I went to Catholic school, Notre Dame High School, and I loved that, and it was a great experience. And going to Notre Dame and having everybody around me going to Easton, I would go to both football games or baseball games or basketball games. So I became both a Rover and a Crusader.
Okay.
And I went on to Kutztown to become a school teacher. And Kutztown was a great 4 years of my life. And I became a teacher in Easton, first starting as a physical science teacher in 8th grade, teaching physics and chemistry because there was no openings in social studies, which was my major. And I then went into, as a permanent sub in September to January, I was teaching physical science. And then an opening came in social sciences, and I became a ninth grade world cultures teacher.
Okay.
And then I became active in the community. I was active as a school teacher. I chaperoned every dance and went to all events. I was the yearbook advisor. I was a bike club advisor. And I was, at one point, for a few months, I was assistant basketball coach because they didn't have anybody else to do it. So it was a great experience. Teaching to me was a great experience, and I loved it. And I give teachers all the credit in the world. They do a great job. They really do teach the future generations of America. While teaching at Easton Area School District, I went to Lehigh University, got a master's degree in public administration. I thought my career path was to be a principal and then superintendent of schools in Easton. That didn't work out because in 1983, as a person who was involved in the Easton Area JCs and Historic Easton Incorporated, I became active in the community and people knew me. So when Phil Mittman decided not to run for a second term, people said to me, you got to run, you got to run, you got to run. I said, what do you mean? I don't know anything about being mayor. So I ran and I won. So I ran against three other people that election, 1983, which seems like years ago now. But it was a great experience. And I got into office. Interesting story for the 1983 election, because my dad and I owned a store on College Hill, a very Republican section. I have a lot of Republican support, so I ran a Republican write-in, and I ran a Republican write-in, and I won that night by 11 or 12 votes.
Wow.
Fred Ashton, who was a former mayor of the city, who I ran against, who was a Democrat, now was a Republican mayor, became a Democrat to win the election. He challenged our elections, and who do we get but President Judge Van Antwerpen, Frank Van Antwerpen. He's the biggest Republican in the county of Northampton. So we get before him, and my lawyer says, he is a Republican. He's probably going to vote against us. Well, we put on our defense, and it ended up we won. We had to have over 100 votes, and we had 112 to 111, and we won by one vote.
Oh, my
gosh. So when one vote says it doesn't count, It meant that as of March, I became the mayor-elect. And so Phil, on his way out, let me in on everything. I was involved in everything, including a very controversial project at the time, which was called Riverwalk, which I was ultimately opposed also.
Interesting. So let me ask you. I mean, so there you are, a school teacher, and you're doing your graduate work, and your intention is to go be a principal, superintendent, what have you. To be proposed, why don't you become mayor, right? That must have been put a little bit of excitement in your belly, but also a little bit of hesitation. What made you decide to step into politics, and was there a specific moment or issue that pushed you to say, I want to be part of the solution?
Melody, I love being mayor. I hate politics.
Okay.
I hate campaigning, and that's what. If you told me, Sal, would you stay on for another 4 years? I'd say yes. I love the job. I don't make any bones about that. But I don't like campaigning. The friends that you lose, and it's just not. And the lack of civility that goes on in elections anymore is ridiculous. And so I'd rather just not be part of that.
And being mayor, I mean, what are some leadership lessons that you've learned along the way? Because, I mean, so you've been mayor for
18 years.
18 years. Okay. And so your term will actually end
in 2 years.
Okay. So
the end of 27.
So you have a little bit more time to go. It'll be a full 20 years at that point. What have you learned over that time? I mean, about politics, about life, about people, because it's a multifaceted operation. Talk to me a little bit about
Melody,
that.
I'm concerned about the political future of our country because it's become very partisan. I mean, Tom Goldsmith beat me in 1991, and he and I remained friends until the day he died. I mean, I had lunch with him the week before he passed away, and we joked about it. I mean, that's what you did back in the 80s and 90s. Today, it's not like that. I mean, it's so partisanship. I just don't want any part of it.
And so few leaders have served as long as you have. When you talked a little bit about, how things are evolving, I guess, on the national, from the national perspective. But are there any lessons you've learned about leadership, decision-making, and resilience over the years in your own terms?
Thick skin.
Yeah.
Social media has destroyed politics because you can get on, I call them keyboard warriors, and they get on their keyboard and they just write anything they want. They say anything they want. Usually it's not true, but, I have several instances where I grew up on South Side and I learned to defend for myself. And I fight back on social media, and my wife gets mad at me, and I shouldn't do that, and I shouldn't, but I do because it grinds me when people are lying, and they say something that just isn't true. I want to correct the position and take a swipe at them.
Well, let's talk about something really great going on in Easton. Easton today looks very different than it did decades ago. From your vantage point, what has been the most significant transformation economically, culturally, structurally? Talk to me a little bit about that evolution and your place in it.
I think everything that we do is for reasons why part of our strategy. We like to create what we call the Easton vibe. People feel safe in our city, so they walk down the street. I meet people on Sunday afternoons who are just walking around downtown because they like it. That makes me happy. That the fact that people are going east again instead of just west to Bethlehem and downtown, which are great cities with good mayors, I don't blame them. But I like the fact that I could be sitting in a restaurant in downtown Easton, and right at the next table is a Bethlehem City Council member who's giving me the shh, don't say anything. I said, no. I said, why not? I said, I want to go to your city and you want to come to mine. I go to your restaurants. Yeah. And I think that's important that we are one. I like to promote the Lehigh Valley because, yes, I'm the smallest city, but also I believe very strongly that the Lehigh Valley is one community. We go to the same churches. We go to the same grocery stores. We end up seeing each other in a face-to-face. I see people from Allentown and Bethlehem all the time. And I just think we're one valley. We're not Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton anymore. We're Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania.
there's some rich historical value that comes along with Easton. With exponential growth comes opportunity and pressure. How have you managed Easton's growth while preserving its character and history? Because you've really done a fantastic job with, oh my goodness, the restaurant scene and the festivals and just foot traffic down there. But it still looks like old world Easton. I mean, I grew up there. I remember.
And we don't want to change that. We don't want to be a big city. We want to remain the small city of the valley. We want to have that Easton vibe where you can still walk around and be happy, be safe. And that's really important. The most important thing of a city today is to be a safe city.
Yeah. So let me just shift gears here with regards to, leading kind of a multifaceted organization. Municipal government comes with layers of bureaucracy. How have you learned to work within and sometimes push through those systems to get some of these things done? Because not just within your own organization, but you guys have fantastic regional partnerships. How do you get it all done?
I think it's very important that we create regional partnerships and local partnerships. I mean, we have a lot of partners in Easton that are volunteers, for example. We have volunteers coming out to Gazoo because they want to help. They want to create a good city. Our community is really one community, and we may be 4 different neighborhoods, but we're one community, and people realize that. Being only 4.5 square miles, we go from one area to another area. We're not like New York, where you're in Staten Island, you don't leave, or Brooklyn, you don't leave. We get to all of the neighborhoods. I think that helps us, and we're very diverse, which I also think is very helpful.
Being mayor can be demanding, though, and often a stressful role. How do you personally manage the pressure that comes with leading a city day in and day out for as long as you have?
I believe very strongly in looking at the positive aspects, and I'm very proud of when I can go down to dinner and people come up and say how good things are going. Thank you, Mayor, for what you're doing. And I'm like, wow, some mayors don't have that luxury of being complimented, and I do. And people remember in 2008 when I took office, and the biggest shock to me was the amount of crime in Easton and the gangs, the national gangs, the Bloods, the Crips, the Latin Kings. They were all there. They were all. And we were able to get that under control. And today, I can honestly say there's no national gangs left in Easton. And we did that by, I can remember being with the State Theater. When I was president of the State Theater, we were doing focus groups around the community. And the one person said to me, who was from Allentown, said, Why you do all these raids? You're telling people that you have drugs in the city. I said, no, we're getting the shooters off the street. We had a terrible shooting problem on the street. Gun violence was horrible. It was over $400. I mean, $400 for a life? I mean, come on, my life is worth more than that. And what we would do is we would go in and raid the house and arrest the people who were there. We would find drugs in the house. We also hired 11 additional police officers, which was $1.5 million to the budget, which was a lot of money even back then. So I think that's probably the proudest thing I'm really proud of is supporting our police officers. They have a tough job. And no matter what they do, your encounter with a police officer is usually when you did something wrong. Your encounter with a firefighter is to save your life. There's a big difference. And they all wear badges, and they both have very stressful and very risky jobs, and I give them all credit. I mean, our police and fire department have done a great job of turning our city around. Our code department does a good job of making sure the buildings are up to code. But, we still have we still can't win by more than 72%. There's still those 28% that are not happy.
You can't win them off,
no,
right?
You try, but you can't.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how Easton has benefited from some of these strong partnerships, without a doubt, regionally and locally. How important have collaborations been to the city's progress? Walk me through a little bit through that evolution of the establishment of, some of those projects, such as the Easton Public Market.
Easton is a destination city. We have Crayola, we have the State Theater, we have Lafayette College. Between the three of them, they bring over 1 million people a year to the city. And so we look at that and we say, how do we keep taxes level? Because we're the highest tax municipality in Lehigh Valley. So we've not raised taxes in 19 years. And my goal is to make it 20 years. So a person who owns a house in Easton or any property is saving about $500 or more a year. And they've been saving it for 19 years because Easton had a history of going up 3 or 4% every year. And we don't want that to be the case. We want to be able to be a place where all people can live. And we want to maintain our diversity. We want to maintain our melting pot. And we want to maintain the fact that everybody can grow up and be friends. One of my friends I grew up with was Larry Holmes. He became the world heavyweight champion of the world, and that's great.
Yeah.
And when I was mayor back in the 80s, he was still fighting, and the national press would come and do stories on Easton. And I think if you look at where Easton's come from, I just want every child to have the same kind of childhood that I had. I had a really great childhood. We grew up in a neighborhood where everybody got along. Everybody played football, basketball, and baseball, and we all got along. We didn't have soccer back then or field hockey, but we all got along, and I want everybody to have, all the young people to have the same type of childhood that I had.
So one of the partnerships that that has been established is the Greater Easton Development Partnership, the GEDP, and they've played a key role in Easton's economic development. We had Jared on a few weeks ago. He talked a little bit about the GEDP. How do public-private partnerships like this accelerate progress, and what advice would you give to other regions or other cities that are looking to really revitalize their downtown and establish something like the GEDP in order to be able to achieve that?
We have a good partnership with GDP, and GDP is really like an economic development arm of the city. The city contributes about $350,000 a year to them, and plus other like free parking, et cetera. And we just gave parking to the vendors at public market. I think the public market is a good example. It didn't happen overnight. It took a lot for me to give them the building. It was $1 million, it was worth $1 million, and we gave it to them. And Jared has done a great job with the staff as far as running the vendors and running. The public market is really an attraction. It's another destination that we've become. Just like Crayola, although Crayola may have 400,000 people, 500,000 people a year, market doesn't have that much, but it has a lot of people who come down. Lafayette College students are coming off the hill because they go to the public market to eat their ramen noodles or whatever they want to eat.
That's interesting. And as you mentioned, the Easton Public Market, the restaurant scene, the small businesses, the festivals, the events have become signature experiences. How do arts, culture, and public gatherings contribute to civic pride and economic vitality? And what do these spaces mean to Easton's identity now? Because you guys, I want to almost say that Easton is like the restaurant scene, and then Bethlehem, I would say, is probably a little more retail. And then Allentown, I think of in terms of like a financial district almost. Like you could almost categorize those three, you know. But how important are those elements to, or those implements to, Easton's identity and the civic pride and economic vitality?
Festivals are very important. I'm a festival person. I love festivals. When I was with the JCs, I was the chairman of the Community Spirit Day, which attracted thousands and thousands of people for a day of fun up at Hackett Park and had fireworks at the end. I would say that the festivals, like I like to say, and I guess I could say it here, festivals, people from the suburbs who live in their own little cocoon, never come downtown, haven't been downtown in 20 years. They remember the Easton of old. The festivals bring them down for free entertainment and food, and they didn't get hurt. And that's really important. They have to know that Easton, you can come down to Easton, and now, are you stupid enough to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning by yourself? Well, that's just begging for trouble. We have... We've lowered crime rate all 19 years.
Oh, wow.
And we're down to the crime rates that we used to see when I was in office in the 80s. So I think that's really important that people know that, and they can come downtown and walk around in the afternoon and see all the historic sites, see where one of the Declaration of Independence signers lived. Our 250th next year is going to be very important in Easton. And as I said to Governor Shapiro when he was in town a few weeks ago, now it's a few months ago, I said, I don't want to hear all about Philadelphia. I want to hear about Easton, too. And I want to hear about Allentown with the Liberty Bell. I want to hear about everybody, not just the big cities. And he, of course, agreed. And we'll have a good year. And Crayola you're going to hear some great things about Crayola in the next couple of months. And we're really excited about them. The problem with our growth is we had Crayola to a point where they wanted to build a new building. All on one floor, all special attractions, all high tech, but we had no place to put them. We had no place to put them in downtown. We don't want to put it in neighborhood, mainly because of parking, but also other problems. And you asked how I put up with the naysayers. I hear about parking all the time. And parking is our problems with being successful is we have no parking. We were laid out in 1752 by Williams Parsons, and they didn't have cars. They had horses. And you could park a lot of horses on a street more than cars. And I go to a place for breakfast, and the lady says to me, I'm tired of hearing about parking problems. She says, where were they in the 70s and 80s when we were here struggling to get along? We had no business and we had plenty of parking. Now we have no parking, but I can pay my bills. And I really appreciated her saying that because it's true. The problem with success in a downtown area is the lack of parking. You just don't have it. Now, we built 2 new garages, and they're empty. People will go to Philadelphia or New York and park in the garage without even thinking about parking on the street. They'll go right to the garage. But in Easton, they don't park in the garage. I mean, we get a report every Monday morning, and I look at that report carefully about what our parking garages are. And like right now, we have a lot of people yelling at us because we have too many apartments. When are you going to stop building apartments? When they stop renting them. What can I tell you?
Good luck with that. Yeah.
The developers are not going to be crazy and build. Now, one nice thing is we have a new project coming in, the Linden.
That was,
which is 72 condominiums, which, now we're going to have homeowners downtown, which is going to be interesting.
The Linden, you said? Now, where is that one?
The Linden is at 3rd and Ferry. It's right on the other side of the City Hall. It's right across from the Marquee.
Yes.
It's across the street from the Marquee.
Okay. And you also have the Confluence going in.
The Confluence is done and rented, and Time, who is a Easton in the 80s, in the 90s to the early 2000s, was opening restaurants and closing restaurants within 6 months because people think they could cook at home, they could cook at a restaurant. No, it's much different.
Right.
So the Confluence, Mick at River Grill, the Trapani family from Time, they also have the rooftop restaurant Zest. Mm-hmm. And so they know what they're getting. When Billy's came downtown, Billy knew what it was like to run a diner downtown, and he is very successful. He tells me he's more successful in Easton than he was in Allentown, and he closed Allentown. So it's Bethlehem and Easton, but they're doing well, the restaurants.
And the Confluence is actually going to be a mixed use. So it's going to actually be restaurant, retail, and it'll be residential rentals?
No, they're rentals, yes. And then on the first floor is all commercial. There's a bakery, there's Boxology, which is a boxing fitness center with a big picture of Larry Holmes. So they're doing well. They're leased up. And we have the Watermark that'll come online. Phase 1 came online already. That's completely leased. And Phase 2 will be online this month.
What are you most proud of at this point? You talked a little bit earlier about, kind of transforming the crime, lowering crime and things of that nature and making it a melting pot.
I'm most happy.
From the economic vitality perspective.
This one has to do with my mom. My mom worked at the Simon Silk Mill, the Simone Silk Mill. When they got hoity-toity, they were the Simones. Before that, they were the Simons. that was the mill on 13th Street, and it was vacant when I took office. And it was the first thing I did was sent the city employees in there to clean the place up, just get rid of all the junk. And there's a knock at my door around 4 o'clock, and I open the door and I said, "What's up?" And it was one of our city workers, two of them, as a matter of fact. I said, "I thought you might like this." It was my mom's time card from the middle of July of 1976, with nothing on it because that's when we opened our store. She came to work for my dad and I.
Wow.
To see that transformed and to go by there on 22 and see lights on is really a difference. And the Carl Stern Arch Trail in between the downtown and the mill. And now we're getting ready for I don't know what he's going to call it, but Mulligan, the same guy that did the Simone Silk Mill, is going to do the old Easton Iron and Metal brownfield, which we're cleaning up starting I think next 2 months from now.
Oh, wow. So the silk mill is the project that you're most proud of, do you think?
I think so because I like adaptive reuse projects.
Mm-hmm.
I like taking an old building and making it something else. And we did that with 12 buildings down there.
Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, you guys did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I just have to stay away from a wild cow.
Me too. What is success to you?
Success is everybody having a job, everybody having a house, a roof over their heads, and that's what we strive for. Our biggest problem right now is homelessness and mental disorders and affordability. The fact, like I have a daughter who's married, she's renting right now. She's paying $30,000 a year in rent that's just thrown away.
Wow.
Because she can't find anything to buy. And our supply is very limited, and we need more housing. And the suburbs are not going to increase their density, and they want their own little acre of land. And so she's living in Williams Township in a townhouse where she's renting. And I feel bad for young people who can't afford to buy a house and are paying very expensive rents. I mean, the rents that we're commanding downtown are anywhere from $2,000 a month to $2,500 a month. And then $2,000 a month is for a studio.
Yeah, I know the rents are climbing in the Lehigh Valley for sure. What advice would you give leaders, particularly in politics today?
I would give them advice. 6 or 7 years ago, I went to a U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting where they said they brought everybody in to get on social media. Mm-hmm. I would say stay off of social media. I would definitely say stay off of social media. It's not needed. And if you want to go on social media, just list projects that are coming up, but don't engage.
Yeah. And build in silence for sure. Sal, what's next for you after you leave office?
I really haven't thought about that. I love teaching, so to go back to teaching, I would go back to teaching in a heartbeat. I would rather go back to something where I could equate what I'm making now as mayor and maybe even more. Obviously, everybody strives to do better, but I did like teaching, and something in education I think is really on my horizon.
So that's a message to to some of the colleges that are here, as well as the superintendents of the school. I don't know.
I don't either.
Mayor Panto, thank you for your candor, your leadership, and your decades of service to Easton. Your story is a reminder that cities don't transform overnight. They change because leaders stay committed, stay present, and stay willing to do the hard work. Easton's story is still being written, and it's clear that collaboration, culture, and community will continue to shape what comes next. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on Trailblazers. I'm Melody Bradford. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, keep investing in community, and keep blazing new trails.